Good evening, Madam Chair. You are all set and ready to go.
Great, thank you. And good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. This is the meeting for Monday, December 8th, 2025. And my name is Deb Poland. I'm the chair of this committee. We also have with us this evening Councilmember Ben Winograd and Councilmember John Lyons, who are the other members of this committee, as well as Councilors Tiffany McGinnis, Barry Walters, and Jason Wang. Our town manager, Rick Ledwith, Deputy Corporation Counsel, Gina Verano, and Patty, I don't know your title, actually.
Acting Finance Director.
Acting Director of Finance, Patty Lewis, as well as Gerida Reinheimer. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this evening. To get started, we'll go to item 2A, approval of the minutes, and I'm seeking from one of the committee members motion to approve the minutes of the most recent meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ben. And a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Lyons. Any discussion about the minutes? If not, committee members vote aye if you vote to approve.
Aye.
Aye.
And no nay votes, and the minutes are passed. Okay, we have three resolutions that we are going to discuss this evening. And we'll start with item 2B, a resolution to appropriate grant funds awarded by the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Highway Safety Office under the Federal Highway Safety Program for the purpose of comprehensive DUI enforcement. And I'll turn it over to Town Manager Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Great to see everyone. As our chair said, first up this evening is a resolution to appropriate a $59,000 grant that we received from the Connecticut Department of Transportation to provide driving under the influence enforcement, driving under the influence enforcement program that we would run from November last month of 2025 through September 12th of 2026. The program will fund essentially 45 different 2-officer 8-hour shifts between now and September, with a heavier concentration around the holidays. So Christmas and New Year's, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day we would step up that enforcement a little bit more during those time periods as well. And the objective of the program is twofold, certainly to provide a safer environment in town for folks driving, reducing crashes and injuries and fatalities as a result of driving under the influence, but also through increased enforcement, we would also be communicating to the public throughout this time period that we are stepping up enforcement, and that we hope as well will help our residents and visitors understand the risk and consequences of driving under the influence. So very happy to receive this grant. We've received others like this in the past, and excited to get this program off the ground and up and running. So through you, Madam Chair, I will turn it back to you and the committee for any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. And just for the sake of those who are watching and for our newer members, our goal tonight is to discuss the resolution, ask any questions that we need answered, and then to hopefully move this resolution along to the town council agenda for next week. So with that stated up front, do any committee members have questions about this resolution? And if not, any other town council members have questions about this resolution? Okay, I think we are good to go for this one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will move on to the next one, which is item 2C, a resolution accepting donations to support programs and activities for America's 250 commemoration. And back over to you, Town Councilor, Town Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this resolution is actually our second resolution accepting donations to support our activities and programs that ultimately will support our America 250 program. We received, as you may recall, $5,800 this past September. And tonight we have an additional $1,811.56 $1,561 was from the Connecticut Humanities Give 250 fundraiser. You recall the Connecticut Humanities ran a similar fundraiser back in late summer, early fall, which resulted in that first donation of $5,800. And they ran a second program a few weeks back, and we received $1,500 through that. And then the Old Guard, West Hartford Old Guard, also made a donation of $250 on top of that $1,500. So that's where we come up with a total of $1,811. And this funding, as you know, will help us develop and promote community programming that will honor West Hartford's role in our nation's history, and also, creating opportunities for our residents of all ages to engage in meaningful celebration and reflection. We also had members of our America 250 task force join us at a recent Human and Community Services Committee meeting this fall to outline some of the work that's been happening there. And we do have an agenda of slated events that really have started already, but the next big event would be the Martin Luther King celebration on Martin Luther King Day. And then we have an agenda that will carry us through the 4th of July as well. So I will pause there, and through you, Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions that the committee and council had.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ledwith. Does anybody have any questions about the receiving of this grant and the use of the funds? Starting with committee members.
Madam Chair, just one process question. It's my second ever committee call. We don't need to vote on these items to take them out of committee?
No, we just basically give our endorsement, and then they end up on the town council agenda for December 17th.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're ready to move forward this large amount of money to go towards our America 250 commemoration. And now we'll move on to the meaty item for tonight, which is item 2D, a resolution amending the fiscal year 24-25 general fund budget to fund transfers to the capital non-recurring expenditure fund, the risk management fund, the utility services fund, and to accrue for expenditures related to tax assessment appeals and contract settlements. And I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Ledwith, with, I assume, some assistance coming from Ms. Lewis.
Yes, thank you. So very fortunate to have another surplus for this past fiscal year. This year's surplus ended up at $4,953,838. By way of comparison, fiscal year 24, you may remember we had a larger surplus of $9.6 million, and then in fiscal year 23, just to go back a couple of years, we had another sizable surplus at $8.4 million. And during the fiscal year, our leadership team in finance, we continually monitor actual revenue and expenses, and continually watching for potential changes in economic conditions, whether overtime becomes a factor because of storms or additional public safety needs in the community. And we'll keep an eye out on retirements and things like that could have an impact on the budget as well. So we obviously want to ensure that we meet our budget obligations. So fortunate to have a surplus again this year. And there were a few factors that led to the $4.9 million surplus. So first off, the council may recall that during budget time, we budget a certain amount on tax collection. So we assume at the budget, during the budget process, that we will collect 99.1% of our taxes. This year, we went up slightly from the previous year. We went up to 99.5% of taxes were collected. So 99.5% tax collection rate. So that resulted in a $2.4 million additional revenue that we had not budgeted for. We'll set aside, and we'll talk about that, we'll set aside a portion of that for tax assessment appeals. Also, as we know, there's been a tremendous amount of development happening in town, not just larger projects, but also a lot of residential projects that are occurring townwide. And we received an additional $1.2 million in revenue as a result of building permit revenue increases. And we also received an additional $585,000 in fire plan reviews. So both of those can be directly attributed to both the development that we're seeing in town, as well as a continued increase in residential renovations that we're seeing townwide. And then the other increase that we experienced this year, increase in revenue, would be under our interest rate line item, but in the budget. So as folks know, we invest our cash in the state short-term investment fund. And we have been monitoring that interest rate over the last couple of years and trying to time at budget time what we think that interest rate would be for the upcoming year. And that interest rate was higher than what we had budgeted, and that resulted in a $1.8 million increase in revenue in our short-term investment fund. So very good news with the stiff numbers. So we do have recommendations on how to appropriate the $4.9 million surplus. But before we get into that, wanted to just take a moment to talk about our fund balance policy. And you may recall that back in 2023, we had revised our fund balance policy following conversations that we had with our rating agency, Standard & Poor's. So as the council knows, we are very fortunate to be a AAA rated community. However, and this is something, that we've always known, and S&P has always shared this information with us. Our fund balance here in town is significantly below what S&P will see for other AAA rated communities around the state and around the country. So the average fund balance for a AAA rated community is 16%. So ours at the time when we had this conversation with S&P was in the low nines. We were at like 9.1, 9.2%. So we have committed to S&P to set aside a portion of our surplus, should we be in a position like we are this year and in the last couple of years of having a surplus, and committing a portion of that to the fund balance so that we can grow it over time. And our goal is to get our fund balance to 16%. So right now, our fund balance is at 10.1%. And we have some recommendations this evening that would bring our fund balance to 10.4%. Standard & Poor's was satisfied with our increase to 10.1% last year. And we believe that this increase to 10.4 would be viewed favorably as well by Standard & Poor's. And we will be issuing bonds again, as we always do every February and March. So should the council adopt these recommendations and move us to 10.4%, we will certainly communicate that to S&P during our rating presentation, and would hope to receive, as I said, again, a favorable response from S&P. So as we parse back that $4.9 million surplus, we would recommend moving $2.2 million to fund balance And that, as I said, would bring our fund balance to 10.4%. We'd also recommend transferring $372,345 to our capital non-recurring expenditure fund. And we would use this fund to fund tasers for our police department. We'd make some slight modifications to the police department interview room. We would fund a new vehicle for our police chief. And we are in the process of upgrading our software for our fire department, and would utilize some of that $372,000 to fund that software change. And then we would also fund some smaller pieces of equipment for leisure services. We would then appropriate $900,000 to the risk management fund, and specifically to the town health program. So last year, when we adopted our budget this past spring, we lowered our risk fund appropriation by $500,000 on budget adoption night to help lower the tax increase. So we'd use $500,000 to add back into the risk fund to offset that reduction. And then we would put an additional $400,000 would go towards the anticipated increase in this year's health plan. So the town and the Board of Ed, all unions with the exception of our firefighters union, participate in the Connecticut State Partnership Plan. And the State Comptroller's Office has notified towns and cities that we can expect a roughly 12% increase in health insurance costs for the upcoming year. So we would use $400,000 of this surplus to mitigate that expected increase during budget time, which would help certainly as we move through that budget process this year. So we would then appropriate $1.2 million to our general fund, and $400,000 would go towards tax appeals. $400,000 would go to revaluation, and that's a process, as you know, has started now. Our reval year is next year, but that costs us around $600,000 every 5 years to fund the revaluation process. And then $400,000 would go towards unsettled contract negotiations. So we're currently in negotiations with our firefighters, as well as 6 CSEA bargaining units, and that includes a portion of our Public Works Department, and then most of our non-public safety employees are covered under CSEA. So that additional $400,000 would go towards any potential wage increase that would be negotiated with those unions to, and again, to help mitigate the budget increase that we will that we would may or may not see for FY27. And then finally, we have $200,000 that we would appropriate to our utility services fund. And as you know, that fund is set up to help offset any kind of future increases that we may see in our energy costs during budget time. So quite a bit there, but I'll pause there, and through you, Madam Chair, happy to get into any level of detail that the council would like to get to this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ledwith. And just as an overview comment before we open for questions, to put into context, this $4.9 million surplus represents about 1.3% of our annual budget. So this just gives us a little bit of comfort that we're not going into deficit this year. You never want to have a lot of surplus, because then it could be that we asked our taxpayers to pay too much. This is not a big surplus. This is a rounding error when we're talking about a budget of $350 million plus in our town. So what we're trying to do with the surplus allocation is a blend of bringing up our fund balance so that we can maintain our AAA bond rating, and paying off a few things up front that we can, while thinking strategically about not putting ourselves in a hole for next year's budget. So this is the kind of thing, if my fellow counselors remember, during COVID, there was money coming in, one-time money. You didn't want to fund ongoing positions or other expenses. You wanted to use it in a smart way that helped to offset other costs, or that we could invest for our future. And that is what this list of activities and expenditures does. So with that opening comment, I will open to committee members first for any questions or comments. Mr. Winograd or Mr. Lyons? Mr. Winograd? You're muted.
Didn't know when that happened. I just want to thank Rick, you and your staff for all the work that went into this. I think getting to 10.4 is, for our fund balance, is a real accomplishment. We have, struggled over the years about getting that up there. And a few years ago would not have been foreseen that we would get this high. So congratulations on that. And hopefully these rating agencies will appreciate the work we've put in to try to get that number up. No particular questions on your allocations. I do at some point. I know we've talked about sort of capital expenses for the fire department, and I know we're going to have to sort of talk about that more at some point. And I don't know whether this is probably not the right pot of money to talk about that now, but sort of recognize that we're going to have to look at that.
Yeah, and we, through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Winograd's question statement. So we are, and we have built-in funds into our capital improvement program. So bonding funds that would be utilized for renovations to our various 5 different fire stations. So we are committed to moving those projects forward. We just recently went out to bid, actually, and have hired a contractor to assist us with some of those projects this year as well. So
Great to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lyons, any questions? Any other town council members have questions on this issue or item?
I have a question.
Yes, Councilor Wang.
Thank you, through you, Councilwoman. How do I address you? I'm sorry, Chairwoman Poland.
Chair Poland or Councilor Poland, either one's fine.
Okay. Chair Poland, through you. Thank you. How much of this 4.9 million? We just had a $20 million tax increase in our town, and now we have a surplus of $4.9 million. And I understand that some of this money is going back into the budget to limit future increases, but I got a little lost in the numbers there. Like, how much of this money, the 4.9 million, is actually going to lower to pay forward future expenses that will lower the tax burden, or at least lower the future increases for our citizens, versus how much of it is going to additional expenditures?
Thank you, Councilor Wang, and to you, Mr. Ledwith.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Wang. Great question. So of the $4.9 million, $2.2 million is coming right off of that number and going into our fund balance. Essentially our rainy day fund. And that will, as I talked about earlier, continue our goal of getting the town's fund balance from where it was to 16%, which is where other AAA rated communities fall. So, and then of the remaining funds, $500,000 of the remaining $2.6 million would actually go towards last year's budget reduction to help offset the decrease we made to the risk management fund at budget adoption night. And essentially the remainder of those funds would go towards mitigating our budget next year. So there are certain things, and yeah, some of them are capital purchases, but it's the cost of doing business. And by utilizing some of those funds and putting it into capital non-recurring expenditure fund, we are then not putting it into next year's budget to fund those capital purchases. And then 400,000 would go towards next year's health insurance increase that we're expecting. As I said, the state comptroller's office has indicated that we would be looking at about a 12% increase in health insurance costs. We'd use $400,000 to help mitigate that increase in next year's budget. We would have another $400,000 to mitigate the contract settlement that would be occurring, if not before the budget, right around shortly after that. So that's, let's see, 500, 400 for contract settlements, that's 900. The 372,000 is the CNRE, so that is also helping to reduce next year's budget. But then we have $400,000 for tax assessment appeals. So we set that money aside. And as we move through future Finance Administration Committee meetings, you'll be part of that process, Councilor Wang, in terms of approving potential appeals that come before the council. And then we have another $400,000 for revaluation, which is done every 5 years. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's going towards reducing next year's budget. It's a cost that we have to incur every 5 years to move our town through that revaluation process. So does that help answer your question, Councilor Wang?
Yeah. Thank you. So it sounds like roughly about 2 or 2.5 million is going to pay to the rainy day fund and these other sort of expenses that will not reduce future tax burden, but will improve our credit, could help shore up our sort of credit evaluation, but they would not reduce the future tax burden. And then roughly 2 million will go to causes that reduce future expenditures kind of in the next, like they're kind of paying forward expenditures that we're going to pay for anyways. Is that kind of, am I paraphrasing correctly? Roughly. Ballpark.
Roughly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go ahead, Councilor Wang.
A really quick follow-up question is the leisure department equipment for 140,000, that line is a little, like, do you know what sort of equipment? Because that's the biggest chunk of change, and it's also the vaguest in terms of the appropriations lines.
Yeah. Patty, do you remember off the top of your head what those two pieces of equipment were?
I actually believe that they were tractors, small tractors for use in our parks.
Yeah, I had it somewhere and I can't put my finger on it right now.
Is that your recollection?
That is my recollection, but it was a specific name of the equipment, and I can have it for
No, you're muted, Patty.
adoption night. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I don't even know. So it's tractors. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is probably not the right venue. I can try to find out, more detail and in the appropriate committee what exactly. Those things are.
And just to add on to what Town Manager Ludwig was saying about the fund balance, and you all know, I think all know this, but for anybody who might be watching online, the higher the fund balance, or the more we hew to what Standard & Poor's wants, the better our bond rating remains. And that helps to offset future costs for people who are West Hartford taxpayers. So we really do want to keep our bond rating as high as we possibly can. And this is a big part of that, is making sure that our fund balance is increased each year. So.
Thank you. Excellent point, Madam Chair. Yeah, the 2.2 investment into our fund balance keeps us at that AAA as we talked about, but also it helps us maintain that lower true interest cost rate as a AAA moving forward. So all of our projects that we fund, we have about $540 million invested in infrastructure around town. It keeps that borrowing cost at a much lower rate than if we were a AA rated community. So it does provide a savings for future taxpayers as well, for our taxpayers in the future, sorry.
Any other questions about this? And if not, we will move this forward as well to the December 17th meeting. Okay, are there any communications
No communications this evening, Madam Chair. Thank you.
and any staff reports
No staff reports this evening.
and requests for future agenda items from committee members? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you for the robust discussion. And now, without objection, I move that we suspend the rules for the purpose of opening the agenda to add an executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, and performance of the Corporation Counsel Attorney Dallas Dodge. Is there any objection? There being no objection, the item is added to the agenda. Without objection, I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, and performance of the Corporation Counsel, Attorney Dallas Dodge. Is there any objection? There being no objection, the motion passes. We will enter executive session. I invite Town Manager Rick Ledwith and Deputy Corporation Counsel Gina Verano to join us in executive session. For the benefit of those watching the meeting, we do not anticipate taking any action on the matter discussed in executive session when we return to adjourn. So for those who haven't done this before, we are going to leave this meeting. You should have a link in your town council email to join us in a different WebEx link for executive session, and we'll see you over there.
Hi, John. Are you trying to get into the executive session?
Is that, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, is that the extent of the presentation, or are we going to receive a presentation and then discuss? Okay, I'm sorry.
Hi,
Um,
John.
Hi there, how are you?
Good. I sent a separate email with a link into executive session.
Yeah, I'm in it.
You should get out of this session, open that email, and go into the new
I
executive
don't know why,
session
I
link.
guess Uriah's on here, but she's talking to me, it seems. It's weird. No, that's right. I keep hearing her voice. So are you guys hearing it, or is it just me?
We'll just give,
Mhm.
here we go. Okay, thank you to those of us who joined us in executive session. We are now back in the regular Finance and Administration Committee meeting at 6:41. And without objection, I would move that we adjourn. Is there any objection? There being no objection, we are adjourned at 6:41 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Yep.